Welcome back in another video, guys. Today we will see all the best builds for all brawlers in rarity order, so the best gadgets, star power and gears. These builds are given by the pros. I leave you the order in the description. Let's get started. Shelly. So with Shelly for the gadget clay pigeons, absolutely, in terms of star power, Shell Shock is your better option as well, just because you can combine it with clay pigeons and just make more plays with Shell Shock. But of course, if you play Showdown or if you're playing on a more defensive game mode, you can go Band-Aid, it's not that bad. Next up for the gears, so you pretty much never swap away from damage and extra gadget because the gadget is really too strong. As for the hypercharge, it is very good, so I recommend you to buy it. NITA. So with NITA, starting off with her gadget Bear Paws is the better one because it can allow you to cycle through to bear more effectively and helps you defend yourself a lot easier, but it does really require good timing, while for you can just easily get value out of it, so again, just depends on whether you're a skilled NITA player. And then for the star power, Hyper Bear in combo with Stunt is really good to use even in like Gem Grab, Brawl Ball, just to help counter those tanks a bit more effectively, but a lot of people just never really swap away from Bear with me because it is really good, especially in combination with a hypercharge, which is definitely worth buying a very good one. I personally recommend using Hyper Bear because it is easier to get value, but the other star power is also really good. In terms of the gears, you really only play NITA on grassy maps, so you want to go with speed, and damage. Maybe in heist you want to opt for pet power instead of speed. COLT. So best build for COLT is definitely going to be Speed Loader most of the time because you're going to be playing heist, but Silver Bullet is really good at opening up the map carrying certain compositions in Brawl Ball, so both of them are really good in terms of star powers. I think Slick Boots is the better star power, but here is a personal preference. Magnum Special can be pretty good as well, but with Slick Boots is a little bit more better and to hit shots. In terms of the gears, Reload. Speed gear 100% of the time, and for the other one, damage and shield, they are both good, but I would go more for a shield. Bull, it's pretty simple, you want to use Stomper pretty much everywhere, and then on heist, T-Bone Injector can be pretty good to get that extra shot on the safe. In terms of star power, Berserker can be pretty good, but Tough Guy is the best one. For the gears, we always go for damage, and as for the second gears, it depends on the map. In maps with many bushes we use speed. Instead, in maps with few bushes we go for health. Brock is pretty simple, rocket fuel most of the time because you want to open up the map, but Rocket Laces is pretty underrated and good if you're just playing maybe Showdown. In terms of star power, the best one is more rockets. Most time more rockets is better if you're just not comfortable hitting your supers, but rocket number 4 is only really good in like Bounty and Knockout, where you can actually reload that 4th rocket. And then in terms of gears, the best one are Shield and Reload. Speed. El Primo. Then El Primo, it can depend how you want to play with him. Asteroid Belt can be good for getting pressure, but Sulex is the better gadget overall, and again for the star power, it can depend on whether you're good El Primo player or not. If you miss a lot of supers, or if you want to rush down the opponents with Meteor Rush, it is probably the better of star power. El Fuego can be really good, especially for finishing kills against squishier brawlers, but Meteor Rush is definitely better for the gears. Health is very good, but in its place I would put a damage and then supercharged because it is really very good. As for the hypercharge, I recommend buying it because it is really very good. Barley, this can be very dependent, but if you just want one that you go into ladder with pretty much all the time, probably the best is Sticky Syrup Mixer for the gadget to slow defend if you against assassins or tanks, and for the star power medical use for healing because it's just really good at getting pressure and just keeping up the consistent shooting. In terms of the gears, the best are always Gadget Charge and Shield. You don't need damage gear on throwers, you're not going to be able to utilize it much for the low HP, especially with Barley, because your star power healing the brawler. For the hypercharge, pros actually recommend buying with Barley because it's very good and game changer, making him one of the best brawler in the game. POCO. So with POCO Tuning Fork, absolutely, unless you're playing ranks and you want to swap over protective tunes, and then star power Screeching Solo, even though you can get some good synergy with Decapo, but Screech Solo is just better. And then with gears, you might want to opt for Shield and Extra Gadget, just because you don't really need damage gear on POCO, you're healing up all the time, so +1 absolutely, and Shield gear as well. For the hypercharge, absolutely to buy it because it's really very strong. ROSA. So with ROSA, it depends what map you're playing, but for the most part, Unfriendly Bushes is going to be your better gadget overall if you're playing her, or like Sneaking Field Center Stage. Unfriendly Bushes is the better gadget. In terms of the gears on really good ROSA maps, the pros go with a +1 to get that extra slow. It is essential, but you can go most of the time to get value out damage, always with tanks and speed. For the star power, all of the pros go for thorny gloves as well, because that can accumulate a lot of damage. The hypercharge is pretty good as well. Don't know whether it's worthwhile buying, but it is a pretty decent one. Jessie. Depends on your game mode, so if you're playing heist you want to go with recoil spring on the gadget, energize for the star power, for the gears pet power and damage. In all other game modes you want to go with spark plug because it's so good at confirming kills and getting pressure with Jessie. On the star power always energize, and for the gears always damage and this time shield. As for the hypercharge, it is absolutely convenient. It is one of the best in the game, so I would buy it immediately if I were you. Dynamite for the gadget satchel charge 100% and demolition pretty much all the time as well. There are some good players that can make some really good plays with Dynajump, but it's just more safe to go demolition because if you combine this with a hypercharge, which is definitely worth buying, you just deal like 7k damage with one super, so it's just insane. And then for the gears damage and absolutely the extra gadget. Tick for the gadget last hurrah pretty much all of the time. And then well-oiled is your better star power overall. Maybe often you can use automatic reload though just to be extra toxic, but well-oiled is one of the best star power in the game and it keeps to oiled up nicely. And then mythic gear absolutely, and then it just depends on what map it is. If you need a vision's good shield can be good as well. And then for the hypercharge absolutely worth buying. It's really strong. 8-bit. With 8-bit, if you want to compo well a build that's pretty much good in every single scenario, then you want to probably opt for something like cheat card on the gadget is really good, and boosted boost is a reason why I use AIT for that extra damage. But again, it can be very game mode dependent, because for the most part on gem grab you want to use something like plugged in for star power, but I think most of the time you can just go with booster plugins, only really needed on really tough matchups against snipers and like Penny for example. So in terms of gears, reload speed gear all of the time, health gear because is very good to revive very quickly, especially when the brawler has a lot of HP. RICO multi-ball launcher 100% of the time. For the star power's robo retreat, it is a good star power, but super bouncy is better because you play on maps with a lot of walls that can suffocate the opponent, so use super bouncy for that. With gears, absolutely always use reload speed gear. And then it can be up to you whether you want to go with like shield, whether you want to go with vision on a bushy map. Damage is really good, and then hypercharge is absolutely one of the best hypercharges in the game, so it is definitely worth buying. DARRYL for the gadget, both of them are really good, but recalling rotator is a little bit better to build up that first super, especially because its charging is really too slow. For the star power, steel hoops is definitely the better star power. The other one is not so good, you die too quickly with that. In terms of the gears in grassy map we use damage and health, and for non-grassy map we use always damage but with speed. Penny for the gadget, salty barrel absolutely, and for the star power absolutely heavy coffers, but if you play ladder on Brawl Ball, Master Blaster is definitely the best star power. And then with gears pretty much never swap away from damage, and shield with Penny maybe if playing a bushy map, which you shouldn't really. Penny you can go with speed and vision, but damage and shield absolutely. And for the hypercharge is a pretty good hypercharge, but often it just gets taken down too easily, so it's not exactly one of the best. Carl, in terms of Carl, so a lot of people using heat ejector, and I might say it could be the better gadget, but it's only better in heist. In fact, if you're playing bounty and you're a more skilled Carl player, flying hook is really good. It's one of the best gadgets in the game. For the star power, the best one is protective pirouette, the other one is useless. And then for the gear, shield can really help him out as well, and damage is good with him because he's pretty tanky damage. It does really high damage, and this makes it a very strong brawler. JACKY for the gadget, pneumatic booster with JACKY is one of the best gadgets in the game, definitely. The other one, it's only used for those who make TikToks to get some views with tactics that will never work. For the star power, counter crush is definitely by far the best star power because with this it just makes easy to count so many assassins and tanks. For the gear, speed and definitely the damage. As for the hypercharge, I recommend you buy it because it is really strong. Gus for the gadget, Cookie Popper 100%, and for the star power, Spirit Animal 100%, zero debates here. And then with Gus, he's got a pretty versatile build. I have to say probably the extra gadget is a must-to-have because you get 4 chances to deal a lot of damage. It can be coming very clutch. And then for the most part one actually probably go with like health or the shield just because Gus is about survivability. You don't really need that extra damage in my opinion. We already have the star power for the BO. So with Bo, starting off with his gadget, Super Totem is the most use, but both gadgets are pretty good indeed. Tripwire probably is the better one for the star power. Snare a bear 99% of the time. The other star power, it is only used in showdown on maps with lots of bushes. In terms of gears, I pretty much never swap away from health and reload speed. EMZ, with M's for the gadget friend zone, is by far the better gadget. For the star power as well, Bad Karma is going to be your better option right now, because M's really sucks in the damage department, so she does need that extra damage, but hype can still be pretty useful as well if you can play it very well. In terms of gears, you pretty much never want to go away from speed and damage, always for the same reason as before. As for the hypercharge, don't buy it, because it's not good at all. Just to you. So with Stu for the gadget, it just depends on the situation. Breakthrough is better most of the time, but if you're playing Hot Zone, Gem Grab Speed Zone is a very good gadget as well, so both are definitely worth buying. In terms of the star power, Gaso Heal is going to be better for you literally all the time. Maybe there's some rare occasions where Zero Drag is going to allow you just to chain better, but Gaso Heal is better. And then in terms of gears, health and shield, because damage gear isn't that good with Stu, to be honest, so health gear can actually be good in situations, and then of course with the hypercharge is actually a really good one, and you can chain it quite successfully, so definitely worth buying. Piper. So with Piper, both gadgets are worth while buying. It's all depending on what game mode and scenario you play. Gem Grab, you probably want to go Auto Aimer, Longer Range Map, Knockout Bounty, Homemade Recipe, both two of the best gadgets in the game, so just get them both. Star Power, Snappy Sniping pretty much everywhere. Maybe Super Bushy Map Ambush can be good, but Snappy Sniping is just way more effective, and in terms of the gears again, pretty much never swap away from damage and extra gadget. Maybe sometimes you can replace the extra gadget with health if you feel more comfortable. As for the hypercharge, it is really very good, so buy it. Pam, so for the gadget, Scrap Sucker 100%, for the star power, Mama Squeeze 100%, for the gears, Mythic Gear you want to use every single time, and then it just depends on what type of map you're playing on. So a nice open map, you want to go with health gear, get a lot of value out of it, but again if you're facing off against assassins, +1 is actually really underrated. 4 bushy map, Vision Gear, so a lot of versatility. I say if you just want to pick one gear, health gear, you can never really go wrong with that on Pam. Frank, so Frank is pretty versatile. Even since the nerf of his gadget, it is really good, but you can use active noise cancelling, especially because if you use that and your hypercharge combined, you're pretty much unstoppable, and it's really good into your counters. So if you're facing a lot of Gale, El Primo, Lou, this is really good, so active noise cancelling is the better one overall. And then for the star power, grab 100% of the time, because that 50% damage is huge for the gears. Without any doubt, health and damage. As for the hypercharge, it is truly a game changer, so I definitely recommend you buy it. BIBI. With BIBI for the gadget, Vitamin Booster 100% of the time, star powers, home run you want to use every single time as well. Maybe on bushy maps you can opt for batting stance, but the extra speed is too good to help you push and get close to the opponents. And then for the gears, the best one are speed and damage, because you never really use BIBI on those open maps, but if you want to use BIBI on open maps, probably would even opt for the health instead of speed. In terms of the hypercharge, it's actually worth buying it, because if used well, it is really too strong. BA. So with BEA, for the gadget, Rattled Hive is always use, because it's just really good for pressure and actually does a lot of damage if you know how to line it up correctly. In terms of the star powers, then most pros do use Honeycomb. I wouldn't put you away from using Instabello as well, so if you're more casual player or you are not confident with your aim, Instabio is probably going to be better, but Honeycomb be really good, especially for pushing up the map and making sure you really hit a 4K shot, because the best thing of BEA is you don't want to be shooting at maximum range. That's why the shield is good, so you can get closer and deal that maximum damage. In terms of the gears, pros use always damage and shield. NANI. With NANI, it depends on what game mode you play. For more open maps which you normally play NANI on, you want to go for return to sender on the gadget, autofocus for the star power, and then damage and shield for the gears, so bounty knockout, this is your best build. But if you're playing on like Heist, Gem Grab, whatever reason, you may as well go with this build. So Warp in Time for the gadget is for the star power, Tempered Steel. As for gears, always damage and shield, even if the extra damage for a few more surprise plays in Heist is not bad, and then the hypercharge is just terrible, no point buying it. EDGAR, then, so EDGAR's always a little bit more difficult one in terms of the gadget. Pretty much every single game mode you need Let's Fly, but maybe if you play duels or a lot showdown, or if you play knockout, maybe you can use hardcore, but Let's Fly is just better overall. For the star power, most of the time the fisticuffs. The other star power is good, but fisticuffs is going to allow you to cycle through to super quicker. S is the better star power in terms of the gear, shield and extra gadget. because you need that +1 gear to build up your super more, and then you just need that shield for when you jump in, because most time you just get shredded, but even damage is not bad at all instead of shield. As for its hypercharge, buy it because it is worth it and really very good. GRIFF, so for the gadget piggy bank 100%, for the star power business resilience 100% is one of the best star power in the game, and then with gears extra gadget it is very important because GRIFF's strong point is his damage and his super, but he must open the map with gadgets to exploit his full potential and reload speed gear. GROM, so for the gadget radio check, most of the time you want to use, because with GROM you use him on more open maps, knockout more open, and it can be really good to confirm kills and it's good on heist. For the star power X factor 100% of the time, and then for the gears the best ones are extra gadget, because you can just get an extra set of 3 shots in rapid succession, which is going to be really useful, and damage gear you can go with shield, but I like damage just because you literally use GROM for the damage, right? So if you can get damage gear active on heist, you deal so much damage in combination with X factor and the extra gadget. Bonnie Sugar Rush 100% of the time. For the star power black powder 100% of the time, literally, the other two are some of the worst star powers and gadgets in the game in terms of the gears, then you want to use +1 100%, and for the other gadget supercharge gear is actually really good because you get your super 3 hits instead of 4, but some pros recommend health, but in the end Bonnie, she's just terrible, so maybe you can opt for supercharge. GALE, so for the gadget twist 100% of the time. For the star power freezing snow, it is the better star power, it's just so good you get value out of it all the time, but blustery blow, it's very good on those maps with a lot of walls to counter those tanks a lot easier. In terms of the gears, definitely the best choices are damage and shield. And then with the hypercharge is probably the best hypercharge in the game, even after the small nerf, so you want to make sure you get that. Colette for the gadget gotcha all of the time, and for the star power it depends what game mode you want to play. Mass tax heist everywhere else, probably push it because it is more effective to counter tanks a little bit better. For the gears always use damage and the extra gadget because Colette's gadget is too crucial for her. As for the hypercharge, if you use it especially in heists, it's an incredible game changer. With just one super it makes 25% at the safe. Belle for the gears reload speed and damage are the best one. For the gadget, most of the time you want to use nest egg, but reverse polarity is pretty good and fun, but it's just more safer and good to use nest egg. For star power, the best one is positive feedback. As for the hypercharge, it is worth it because it is really very good compared to other hypercharges. Ash Chill Pill is definitely the better gadget, and then with star power as well, First Bash is going to be the better one because we all want to be able to grow up your rage as quickly as possible, and that's what you're going to do, and the pros use for gears, they always use speed and damage. LOLA, so with LOLA for the gadget freeze frame, absolutely, you can see pretty much every single time, even in heist, it's just so good at maintaining control, heals a lot, and heals your allies as well. For the star power improvise is better only against a lot of tanks, and that's going to be better, but Silas is definitely the better one. For the gears 100% of the time reload speed and health gear because LOLA is about survivability, she does a good amount of damage anyway, so I think you don't really need to put damage. Sam, so with Sam for the gadgets, absolutely gadget magnetic field, and for the star power hearthy recovery, there literally no point even trying the others, they're just terrible. For the gears on bushy map speed and damage, and then elsewhere you can go with the shield as well instead of speed. Mandy, with Mandy for the gadget, I think most of the times I actually use cookie crumbs just to pierce and build up your super a lot more effectively, but caramelize in combination with your super is also really good. It depends how good of a Mandy player you are. Caramelize can be really good, especially if you're playing on a non-Mandy game mode like Brawl Ball, Gem Grab, etc. In terms star power in my sights is just better just to get a faster focus, and then in terms of gears the best ones are definitely damage to get even more damage and shield. MAISIE, absolutely for the gadget disengage, and Tremos by far for the star power. For the gears MAISIE absolutely need +1 gadget charge, and for the other one it does depend on what type of player you're on. Normally I go with the extra damage just because you can just get more damage with a hypercharge in combination, and speaking of hypercharge, it is definitely worth buying. Hank for the gadget barricade is going to be the better gadget by far, and then for the star power it's going to blow the other ones, just literally blow. For the gears there is no doubt that the best ones are damage and health because it is very important to recover HP as soon as possible. Pearl, so with Pearl for the gadget overcooks absolutely. For the star power heat shield absolutely as well, and then with Pearl just depends on what type of map. Play vision gear can be pretty underrated, health gear can be pretty good, but the best choice remains shield and damage. As for hypercharge, do not buy it at all. Larry and LAWRIE, so for the gadget fall back 100% of the time. For the star power protocol assist is the best one, the other one is good but overall the assist is a little better. In terms of gears you can go with damage as well and definitely go with shield. ANGELO, so with ANGELO of course for the star power impow for healing while you can build up your poison, and then with gadgets both gadgets are actually really good. I think the pros do use Master Fletcher more often because dealing 4k damage behind a wall is pretty insane. It's so good for pressure, but of course the other gadget is pretty good. For the gears shield as well you can use damage with ANGELO, but health is better because since he can't recharge his health while charging the shot, he brings it back into play much faster. And for the hypercharge, I don't recommend you to spend 5,000 coins, it's not worth it. BARLEY. For BARLEY. So again, it just depends on what game mode you're playing. If you're playing Heist, then you want to use Healthy Additives gadget because you just deal so much damage, like what at 25% to the high save 20%, I think actually crazy. And then Friendship is great, is just really good because you can just chain the healing really easily, especially if people are grouped up, which you normally do with BARLEY compositions. It's just good for. Knockback as well can help you against assassins. Really strong gadget. And then for the star power, absolutely the best one is Floor is fine. The other star power is useless. In terms of gears you never really want to switch away from shield and gadget charge. Shade, so with Shade for the gadget absolutely long arms. For the star power hardened hoodie 100% of the time, and for the gears I think damage is really useful to have because Shade needs a bit of extra damage. As for the second gears, absolutely health to get back into the game as soon as possible. Meeple, for the gadget, absolutely Mansion of Meeple. Even if Rage Quit is good, it is, especially when Meeple was just released, it was buggy. Now it has been fixed, so Mansions of Meeple is the best. As for the star power here too, it depends. I honestly prefer Rule Bending because it gives Meeple that recharge speed that he lacks, but also Do Not Pass Go is still good if you don't want to stay there and stay in his super. As for the gears, absolutely Damage is the extra gadget because it can be very useful. Mortis, so Mortis Easy Survival Shovel 100%. For the star power Coiled Snake 100% as well, and then again it depends. For the gears you can use damage because that can really help you out, especially with a lifesteal, and then you also definitely need the Mythic gear 100%, and then Hypercharge is one of the best in the game, so make sure you're buying that absolutely. Terra, so with Terra for the gadget support from Beyond all of the time. For the star powers I use Healing Shade just because you can get a lot of value out of it, so it's actually pretty good, although Black Portal is good against snipers, but Healing Shade is better. And then with gear speed and damage you can never really go wrong with that, but if it's super bushing map then Vision can be good. And for the Hypercharge is very good, can make some really good plays with it, so definitely worthwhile buying. Jean, in terms of the gadgets, most of the time you use Jean on open map, so Vengeful Spirit is going to be better. The Knockback is really good, especially play Gem Grab or Brawl Ball, anything like that, really good to counter and cancel people's supers. In terms of star power, Magic Puffs, one of the best stop power in the game. Very rarely you switch over Spirit Slap, maybe when you really need the DPS, but Magic Puffs is just so good, and that's the reason why Jean is a really good brawler. In terms of the gears then, pretty much most of the time you want to use Jean on a bushy map with a Vision gear, really becomes one of the best brawlers in those maps, but if you don't use it on maps with a lot of bushes, surely the best option is to go on a shield, and the Mythic gear is probably the best Mythic gear in the game, so it is absolutely to be used. As for the Hypercharge, it is absolutely not convenient, I would never buy it. Max, for the gadget Phase Shifter 100%. For the star power run end gun you pretty much want to use all the time unless you've got a composition where you really need the speeds. In terms of gears the best combo is probably Health gear and the Shield gear because it's a really good defensive max build. If you're more aggressive and want to get into the faces of opponents you will have to go with damage and the extra gadget. As for the Hypercharge, it is one of the best in the game, so it is absolutely worth buying. MR.P, so for the gadget Service Bell is the better gadget. Overall portal reinforcements can be pretty annoying especially against snipers, but this one's just better. In terms of the star power Revolving Door, absolutely, because the other one is just so hard to hit people with Mr. P, and then for the gears you will never have to switch from damage and shield. Sprout, so for the gadget Transplant 100%, for the star power Overgrowth 100% of the time as well, you don't need to swap away from any of these. For the gears Supercharge 100% because you're able to get your super with one less shot, and that's just essential, and then again it's up to you where you want to go. The shield gear can be pretty safe. As for the Hypercharge, don't buy it at all. It's not worth it. BYRON, in terms of BYRON for the gadget booster shots, is so good for cycling through your super, and that's one of the best things about BYRON, you know, if you hit 2 of those shots, it's just so easy to cycle through. Of course 3 is optimal, but it's really hard to do so, but it's easy to do it to a maximum range. For the star power melees 100%, because just throw the super onto an opponent straight the way they're going to be really annoyed because their health regen is just messed up for 9 seconds completely, they just don't heal up, so melees is so good and underrated. For the gears, absolutely shield, because BYRON has 2 low HP, and then the extra gadget, because as said before, it is very important to continuously recycle the super. SQUEAK, so with SQUEAK for the gadget, pretty much always go residue all of the time, and then with star power it can depend on what SQUEAK player you are. If you find yourself very good at hitting a lot, super stick is very good, and I think pros prefer that just a little bit more, but it's kind of like just a 50-50 because chain reaction is also very good. In terms of the gears, absolutely extra gadget, and again, it can be up for you. Health can actually get some good value with, damage you can get some good value with as well, so decide which one you feel best with, and then for the hypercharge is not worth buying. So with Lu, the best gadget is absolutely cryo syrup, and also for the star power, absolutely hypothermia as well. Both of them are by far your better options, but ice block is a pretty good gadget, but cryo syrup is better overall. In terms of your gears, the best combination is definitely supercharge and the extra gadget, because the gadget is really too strong. And then with the hypercharge, one of the best in the game, make sure you buy that. Roughs, so with roughs most of the time you want to use air support, just because there's not many brawlers you really need to use take cover with, but is really good against snipers. For that reason you can push up the map easier, but air supper is better most of the time. For the star power, air superiority is your better star power, and then for the gears, damage and shield are the best choice. And for the hypercharge is one of the best in the game, so definitely buy it. Buzz. With Buzz for the gadget, the best one is Reserve Buoy, but X-ray shades can be pretty underrated on some bushy maps like Sneaky Fields, etc., but Reserve Buoy is really good, especially with the hypercharge. For the star power, Eye Sharp is the best to build up your super and hypercharge much more effectively, and in terms of the gears, always damage and extra shield can be really good, but in bushy map you want to go absolutely with the speed gear. For the hypercharge is very good, so definitely buying it. Fong, so for the gadget, roundhouse kick is definitely the better gadget. Overall, cornfu can sometimes have its use case, but roundhouse kick is so good, especially in combination, to get that quick damage. For the star power, fresh kicks is going to be the better option because you can just make some really cool plays competitively, but Divine Souls is better on the game modes, where Fong is better on knockout and bounty. Divine Souls is it just helpful to get that extra bit of tankiness. For the gears, without a doubt, you will never change from shield and damage. As for hypercharge, it is not one of the best, especially it is useless if you use it in knockout or bounty, but if you use it in footbrawl it can definitely help. Eve, so for the gadget gotta go 100%, for the star power, unnatural order 100%, and then I pretty in terms of gears much never swap away from reload speed and quadruplets, although this aren't as good as you can, though it's a bit overrated especially for 2k coins, so it's probably better to use a shield instead. Janet. So for the gadget, drop the base, which is going to be your better option most of the time because you play Janet on a more grassy map normally, so drop the base helps scan the opponents. Backstage pass is better on more open maps, but definitely the other one is better. For the star power, vocal warm-up is an absolute essential, so make sure to buy that, and for the gears, damage and shield are the best ones. Otis, so with Otis you want to use Fat Splatter for the gadget, and for the star power, ink refills, no debates here. Then again, in terms of gears, with Otis most of the time you play on a bus-on map, so you want speed and the vision gear, but again if it's a non-bushy map you can just go with damage and shield or maybe supercharge, and then for the hypercharge it's a very good hypercharge and probably worth buying. Buster. For the gadget you want use slow-mo replay all of the time, and for the star power, Kevlar vest all of the time, even if it is not entirely essential. The other gadget and star power are useless. Then with Buster you again use them on a bush map normally, so for the gear, speed is essential, and then damage gear is really good for Buster because you can easily stay at safe distance, and thanks to his range, he actually deals a lot of damage at maximum range, quite surprising and really good for him. Gray, so for Gray the best gadget is Walking Cane 100%. For the star power is depending on the game mode, Fake Injure is going to be better on knockout and bounty and new perspective elsewhere, just really good to get the extra bit of HP for you and your teammates. In terms of the gears then, so again it could depend on the game mode, but overall the two best are damage and the extra gadget. As for the hypercharge, it is nothing special, so I suggest you save 5k coins. RT, so with RT out of line is definitely going to be your better gadget, especially on most scenarios where you want to defend yourself against tanks are really good. You want to use Hack's gadget. When it's a more open map you're facing off against more snipers, it can be good to confirm kills, so both gadgets are really effective. For the star power recording is going to be your better option. Overall people forget about quick maths that it's actually good on those open maps because you don't need the shield for the most part, right? So quick maps can also be pretty good as well, and then gears are never swapped from shield and health. Willow. So for the gadget, a lot of people are going over to Spellbound now because you need that quick burst down dive can be good if you're facing off against assassins can be good, but Spellbound's just better for extra damage. And then for the star power again, depends on what game mode. If you play in Brawl Ball Obsession is better, everyone else love is blind, and then pretty much never swap away from damage and shield because the other gears just don't really get value with her. Doug with Doug Extra Mustard is definitely going to be your better gadget for the extra damage, and then of course self-service is going to be way better as well. Healing up your attacking can be really good and help you with interactions, and then speed and damage because pretty much you only use Doug on those bushy maps. Chuck. So Chuck has two good gadgets most of the time, though you'll be using rerouting just because it's a more open map. For Chuck is better on like safe zone etc. Any heist map rerouting is going to be better most of the time, but Ghost Rain can be really good if you're playing Chuck on hot zone or knockout. For the star power pit stop 100%, although tickets please can be good, but most of the time pit stop with that extra post can be really annoying for the opponent to deal with. For the gears we always use damage, and for the second gears it depends on whether we want to play a little more aggressive, we use the shield, or if in heist we want to continue going back and forth, health is much better. Charlie. With Charlie for the gadget spiders pretty much all over the time because the other one is useless. For the star power both of them are not a game changer, but the best one is Slimy just because in case you miss your super at maximum range you will still have an advantage. In terms of the gears, you pretty much never want to swap away from damage and the extra gadget just because you need that for the spiders to tank for you. Miko. Next up with Miko, Clipping Scream is the better gadget for sure, also because Clipping Screen is so good for the extra DPS that you might need, plus you can just slow people then jump on them anyway. And then in terms of star powers, Monkey Business is your better star power, but if you're playing M on Showdown or if you play Heist, Record Smash is going to be your better star power, and in terms of your gears you just never want to swap away from shield and damage. Melody. For the gadget interlude, of course the best gadget for Melody by far. In terms of the star power, fast beats as well, there's just no debate in it. And then with gears sometimes you might want to opt for like the damage gear, but the extra gadget is just so good, and for the other one always shield because in combo with the gadget gives you that extra tankiness to help you build up your supers more, get more pressure, and of course because you just want to run and die every single time. Lily. For the gadget Vanish, absolutely. In terms of star power, Spiky is the better star power overall, but also Vigilance is a lot good, especially because extra 1000 damage can help in some instances, but this can be really good in helping you build up your super and getting pressure. In terms of the gears it also depends on you. You can vary between shield and damage, but the extra gadget should definitely always be equipped. Clancy. So with Clancy for the gadget, looking at the pros and what they're using, most people will still want to use snappy shooting, even though the pros are using the dash a little bit more. The main reason they're doing this is because Clancy can get countered still pretty easily, and especially if they outrange him consistently, but tactical retreat allows you to get close, and especially if you got your super you can get that second level. You just need to get to the second level, so your personal preference here, but I personally prefer tactical retreat for the star power recon just because Clancy is all about getting to that level 3 as quickly as possible, and then in open map it's a free win. So even though free tokens doesn't sound like a lot, it's a lot to get you off that first level because first level Clancy is unplayable. In terms of the gears, the best are damage and shield. So with Mo, Dodgy Digging is going to be your better gadget. Overall you can get some good plays with the other gadget, though sometimes can be effective, but that's just more safe. And then for the star power, Skipping Stones is going to help you especially against tanks, but people use Speeding Ticket if you're playing Bounty or Knockout, because what this actually does, it gives you extended range over the first star power, so it can help you in those fights you might think that Mo easy to counter. In terms of the gears, surely damage and shield practically always. Juju. So with Juju both gadgets are actually really good, but Voodoo is easier to get value from, especially as well just to help you build up your super easy. For the star power, Numbing Needles is by far the better, the other star power is really bad. In terms of gear, shield and extra gadget, because damage isn't the best on most throwers, and the extra gadget is very good because both gadgets are really strong, you need that +1 on them. Spike, so with Spike for the gadget life plant all the time, but on Heist maybe you can go popping pincushion, but really hard to get value with. In terms of the star power as well, Curveball is going to be your by far the better option. In terms of the gears damage, because you do need that extra damage with Spike, that's why you Spike for the damage, so go with this, but again Spike is pretty squishy, so you could go with the shield as well, but you definitely need the mythic gear with him. Absolutely, and for the hypercharge is okay, but probably not worth buying. Crow. So with Crow for the gadget, slowing toxin is definitely going to be your better gadget, even though it's only 2 seconds, but it still is by far the better gadget, and in terms of star power then carrying Crow is going to be your better star power just because of the damage that you can provide, and you've also just mainly play Heist, right? So if the Heist safe is below 50% you can deal so much damage with a hypercharge. Hypercharge, which is absolutely a must-buy if you play Crow in Heist. Because it does really a lot of damage. If you play it in other modes it is not so useful. In terms of gear, shield is always a must-have, and as for the second gear, many recommend the extra gadget to try to slow down the opponents as much as possible. Leon, for the gadget, lollipop drop is going to be better pretty much every single time because you can make plays with clone projector very rarely. Lollipop drop is one of the best gadgets in the game, and in terms of star powers, Invisi heal is your better option most of the time, but if you play really open map you will get a lot of value out of smoke trails, so I think it's pretty underrated for that reason, but Invisi-heal is the better one for sure, and for the gears we absolutely take the mythic gear and the shield gear just because we want to quickly surprise opponents, so shield gear helps to tank any damage, get up close to them, and mythic gear allows to make more plays and give more time. And then for the hypercharge is one of the best in the game, so make sure you buy that for him. Sandy, for the gadget, sweet dreams, absolutely. For the star power, Rude Sands you want to use most of the time. Maybe if you're playing like Hot Zone you can get a good result with using healing winds when you don't need the scout in the bushes, but Rude Sands is way better. And then for the gears you can pretty much never swap away from speed and damage, but if it's like a super bushy map, vision gear can be underrated, and then for the hypercharge is very good, make sure to buy that. Amber. With Amber, so for the gadget, dancing flames. For the star power, wild flames is definitely the best star power to use. You want to use that all of the time, and in terms of gears, reload speed gear you never want to swap away from that, and then again it can just depend on Amber and your matchup, but most of the time pros use vision gear. You do use Amber on a grassy map to break open the bushes, and you can just go the damage gear as well. MEG, with Meg you want make sure using jolting volts for the gadget. For the star power, heavy metal is so good because people just can't kill you if they're up close because of the knockback and the extra damage. In terms of the gears, damage is always to be put, and as for the other gear you can choose between shield and health. Probably the best of the two is health. Surge, for the gadget, both are really good. Most players can use power shield effectively. The pros use power surge probably more often just because if you draft search they can draft counters easily, so power surge allows you to get your levels more frequently. And then for the star power, absolutely serve ice cold, and then with the gears pretty much speed and damage. You know, maybe if you want to play surge on grassy maps normally, but more open map you might want to opt for shield. And then for the hypercharge is one of the best in the game, so it's definitely worth buying. Chester, in terms of the gadgets the best option is definitely Spicy Dice because it can allow you to cycle through from a terrible super to a good super and win the game. Beans sometimes can be pretty good, but the author gadget it's much stronger. For the star power there is no doubt single Bellomania is the best one. For the gears, health gear and damage is the best options, but you can also play Chester in bushy maps, and in that case the two best gears are vision and speed. Cordelius. In terms of Cordelius, the best gadget to use is replanting almost all of the time except for on bushy maps where Poison Mushroom can be good, or if you play Showdown. In terms of star powers, it depends. Most of the time Mushroom Kingdom can be good. Combo Shrooms is good as well as a little bit in between. It depends on how you play Cordelius. I personally use Combo Shrooms more frequently. I would say it's more guaranteed value, but if you hit a lot of Cordelius super of course you're going to get a lot of value out of the other star power. For the gears the best one are always shield and the extra gadget. KIT, for the gadget's cardboard box is going to be better most of the time because invisibility with a click of a button is so good, and especially if you play most of the time solo. For the star power depends what game mode you play. Showdown of course you go power hungry. In all other game modes, overly attached Althog, it's not really a great star power but better than nothing. In terms of the gears, definitely with the extra gadget because the invisibility is really strong, and for the second gear we go with shield. Draco. So with Draco starting off with a gadget, easily go to be last stand, and star power 100% go to be shredding, zero debates there. And in terms of the gears, normally play Draco on a grassy map, so probably want to opt for speed and damage. Kenji. So of course for the gadget, the healing 100% of the time, and for the star power Nijirai Nemesis 100% of the time, there's zero debates about any of these. In terms of gears, it's up to you whether you want to go with, but the best one's definitely damage, and also the extra gadget because you like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.